we set sail, we ask God's blessing on the most hazardous and dangerous and greatest adventure on which man has ever embarked.
It's the 16th of July 1969 and Lightroom has transported us to Cape Kennedy in Florida, where a 363-foot rocket, the Saturn V, is standing fully fueled on the pad. Over 1 million people have gathered to watch the launch. The astronauts, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin and Mike Collins, have been up since before dawn, exiting the crew building in their pressure suits as they take some of their last steps on Earth. Note the paper bag that Mike is carrying. Bizarrely, it's got a stuffed trout in it, given to him by NASA engineer and fishing buddy Gunter Wendt. Mike's not going to carry it all the way to the moon, but it's lightened the mood.
T-minus 1 minute, 35 seconds on the Apollo mission, the flight to land of the first men on the moon.
Built to outrun the gravitational pull of an entire planet, their rocket weighs over 3,000 tons, the same as 2 World War II Navy destroyer ships.
T-minus 15 seconds, guidance is internal.
It's the heaviest object ever to fly and is the most public declaration of the miracles of engineering required to carry humans to another world.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running.
Navigating to the moon is not like following your phone to find us here at Lightroom. Once you've left Earth, there's no GPS or magnetic field lines to follow. And on top of that, the moon is moving, hurtling around the Earth at almost 2,300 miles per hour. So the Apollo astronauts had to chart their position by triangulating between the brightest stars as they aimed for a point in space where the moon would be 3 days later when they reached it.
The moon was always two things at the same time. It was a stranger to us. It had a shifting face. It appeared in different places in our sky, in a different shape in our sky, and yet it was as familiar as our next door neighbor. We saw it every night. So there was a combination of familiarity and mystery.
Apollo 11's command module pilot, Mike Collins, once told me he had 2 moons in his head. The one we're all familiar with from Earth in the night sky, and the one he'd seen closer up. Here at Lightroom, we wanted to give you all a glimpse of Mike's second moon. We just had to find the best images of it. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter mission came to the rescue. Locked in a polar orbit around the moon, it passes over every inch of the moon's surface, mapping every lump and bump, crater and valley in exquisite detail. The resulting effect is to create an incredibly crisp, stunning lunar encounter, as if you're riding along with the Apollo astronauts yourself. It's Sunday, the 20th of July, 1969, and the most watched TV event in history is unfolding without pictures of the action. An estimated 600 million people watching and listening around the world marvel at the moment.
This is Apollo Control at 100 hours, 14 minutes. We will be doing the separation maneuver.
Transforming Lightroom into mission control allows us to place you at the engineers' desks that we've projected onto the floor. We can even light them up as each engineering team gives a go for landing.
Go, Fido. Go, guide. Go, control. Go, Telcom. Go, GNC. Go, Ecom. Go, Surgeon. Go, Capcom. We're go for powered descent.
But of course, on this first landing, not everything went to plan.
Program alarm. 1202, standing by.
Unexpectedly overloaded with data during the landing, it was now repeatedly restarting itself, but unlike most personal computers, it was still seamlessly picking up where it had left off with the vital jobs.
It's executive overflow. If it does not occur again, we're fine. We're go. Stay tight. We're go.
It was a masterstroke of design by the team at MIT to keep the historic landing on track.
Tranquility Base. has landed.
Neil considered the challenge of landing on the moon to be a 12 out of 10, whilst walking on it was only a 1.
This is Houston. We request you open the TV circuit breaker at the present time.
2.5 seconds later, the image has been transmitted 250,000 miles through space to a giant dish in Australia. Someone in a relay station there flicks a switch to flip the image. The picture improves a little as this first explorer from Earth prepares for the next moment, collecting his thoughts as he steps gingerly towards the camera.
I'm going to step off the limb now. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Neil is now unveiling the plaque. It says, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969.
Almost everyone who went to the moon left something personal there. Wrapped up with Neil and Buzz's mementos of remembrance on Apollo 11 was a tiny silicon disc with goodwill messages from around the world etched into it. One message is from a man called Eric Williams, the then Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. It reads, "It is our earnest hope for mankind that while we gain the moon, we shall not lose the world."
Proceeded, 3, 2, 1, ignition. On our way, Houston.
Getting back from the moon required a fragile daisy chain of moments and machines, starting with something called Lunar Orbit Rendezvous, or LOR. A self-taught Russian mechanic called Yuri Kondrachuk was first credited with this idea in 1916 when he realized that it was more efficient for only part of the spacecraft to land and return to orbit. Kondrachuk never lived to see his concept play out on Apollo, but his legacy lives on in how we first went to the moon and how we could one day return.
And as we leave the moon in Taurus Littrow, we leave as we came, and God willing, as we shall return, with peace and hope for all mankind.
Free-falling back to Earth from a height of almost 250,000 miles from the moon meant hitting the top of the atmosphere at a staggering speed of over 25,000 miles per hour. The Apollo command modules were designed to shed most of this speed as heat, but this alone wouldn't slow them down enough. Ask any re-entry systems engineer what the most crucial factor is in returning to Earth, and they will give you 3 things: parachutes, parachutes, and parachutes. Each of the 3 main chutes was made of half an acre of fabric, connected by 2 million stitches. The returning Apollo capsule would deploy its first 2 drogue chutes at a height of 25,000 feet. They were designed to slow it from 325 miles per hour to 160 before the main chutes took over to reduce the speed to a more survivable 20 miles per hour for splashdown. The sight of these orange and white canopies of reassurance, as astronaut Mike Collins called them, warmed the hearts of everyone involved in each Apollo mission, heralding the safe return of their friends and family.